Hey guys, this is Jason Reinhardt. You're listening to Pure Evil MMA.
I got a very special guest with us today, Jason Reinhardt, the world champion UFC vet, joining us today, and he's got a lot to talk with us about, and this is a special guest for us, guys. Another fighter from the no-hold-bar era that we're going to be talking with. We spoke with Brad Kohler earlier in the week, and now we got another amazing fighter here on Pure Evil MMA, Jason Reinhardt. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're totally excited that you're on here, man. Definitely wanted to talk with you about a couple of things because you've got a lot going on in your life. Of course, you've had an amazing career as a fighter, and we're going to jump into that. But you got some things going on across the pond over there that I kind of wanted to brush up with you on. What's going on with you in Morocco right now?
Well, I just, I went to Morocco and I taught, I coached all over that beautiful country. And I just want to say freely, Murray, man, it's bothered me, and he's like a brother to me, and every man makes mistakes, and I'm not one to judge. And, he's done his time, and he's done 10 years without a peep without one complaint. He's done it like a warrior, and now they're keeping him. He used to call me all the time, man, and now the phone call stopped, and I can't find him, and it's really bothering me, But I wish that I could get some answers. I've tried to get an international lawyer involved, and the international laws don't, cover Morocco, I guess. And I don't know, man. He needs to be home with his family, bro. He's got a family and kids, and everybody seems to forget about him, but boy, they sure loved him when he was bringing glory to their name, and they were riding his coattails. But in the minute he goes away, and people forget, man. They have short memories. Nobody has any loyalty, it seems, anymore.
What are these people saying to you that are denying, you to even get in contact with them?
Bro, I don't know, man. I hear so many different things. I've tried to contact the King of Morocco. I got very, very close to doing this, and it fell through. They're not telling us anything, and that's the very, very heart-wrenching part. The man has been in a hole, locked away in a different type of cage. That I will promise you, I was right, I will promise you, I don't know too many guys that could handle what he's been through and what he's going through right now. I mean, they're letting people that rape children and do horrific things and kill people out of prison less time and give less time than what he's gotten. And he's done 10 years, man. He deserves to be home with his family, and that's it, man. I'm still going to keep fighting for it. And Lee wants to fight again. He's in amazing shape. This guy can do 800 up downs, man, without stopping, and burpees, and just unbelievable shape. You can't believe how the shape he's in. He can walk in the UFC right now and compete. I guarantee you.
So for a lot of our listeners that might not know who we're talking about, he was actually involved in a bank robbery, and he went over there. He served his time, like you said, and now they're holding him there. So what can people do to try to help him out as much as they can if they're willing to reach out their hand, a helping hand?
Yeah, please, man. If anybody can help me, man, please, a lawyer, whoever. I don't know what else to do, man. I mean, yes, I know that he's allegedly made a mistake and all this. I understand. I don't condone criminal activity, but man, I'm not a judge, bro. And when you're my friend for life, and that's it, man. And yeah, dude, I just this guy saved my life in the street one time, man. And you don't ever forget that,
Well, yeah, you were telling me earlier that you had quite a trip over there in France and Morocco. Why don't you share a little bit about that journey that you had? You stayed at that bar overnight. Why don't you bring our listeners through that? That was a real interesting story.
Well, brother, I ended up going to Morocco to Casablanca, Morocco, and I was living with a Muslim family. Everybody was saying how crazy I was going to get killed and all this stuff. I went by myself, and the Muslim family was beautiful to me. They were amazing to me, amazing. And I was 2 blocks from Lee, about 3 blocks from Lee, in Rabat. He's in prison in Rabat, Morocco. And anyway, I just traveled the whole country, man, and stayed there for 6 weeks, living with the family. And I was teaching MMA, and it's illegal. MMA is illegal in Morocco, so I was trying to help the government organize and legalize it. And we did a show, and it went pretty well. And look, man, nothing's perfect when you go to different places, okay, and out of the country. Nothing's perfect.
Well, look at India. They just had that match. They just had that match over in India, and they don't have many officials or refs over there that are really up to standard to what we have over here in the States. And you see it all the time that some mistakes that they make, and it's a scary thing. But you got to introduce it to these other parts of the world. It's growing so fast, and thanks to people like you that are introducing it, showing them the right way, so these fighters don't get hurt when they do fight in places like that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because what this one man did to me, he's a good man. He just, I had an interpreter, and Muhammad, he was the guy's house that I stayed at when, with many other people in the home. And one day, I was so sick, bro. I got so sick because the food, we're not used to the food, so yeah. And when all the men, we sit around and we eat, and everything is we eat with our hands, and that's their culture. When you go to another country, you adapt to their culture. You don't put your culture onto them.
Yeah.
You adapt to their culture. This is called respect.
Yes.
And I knew I was going to get sick, because you're sharing germs, but they're used to this, and oh man, I tell you what, bro, I got so. What's that?
I'm saying their guts are more used to it than what we are over here in the States.
Yeah, and man, I got so sick, and at that point, I'd already done like 4 seminars, and I woke up in the morning, and man, I didn't really sleep that night, really, but I asked the interpreter, I said, how long is the seminar today? Please, ask Muhammad, and they told me 1 hour and a half. I said, okay, cool, man. I'll splash some water on my face and get in the shower, just, trying to get this, sickness out of me or whatever. And man, bro, I got in this truck. There's 5 Moroccans in this truck, and they took me on a wild goose chase. Man, it was 12 hours one-way drive, and they took me to Tangier in the mountains, in Tangier, Morocco, for me to teach another seminar. We get there at 3 in the morning, and man, I lived with a family in a compound, and there must have been 40 to 50 family members in this huge compound, and it was quite the experience, let me tell you.
So, man, let's jump into a little bit about your fighting experience. A lot of people might remember you from the UFC, fighting people like Joe Lozon. But also, I was looking back at some of the organizations that you fought for, like RSF. Along guys like Horn, Shirk, Fulton, Steve Berger, Andre. Let's talk a little bit about those times. I mean, do you feel a little robbed about some of your credentials, because you've mentioned before to me that there's a lot of fights that you fought in that aren't even documented. I mean, do you feel a little robbed about what some of your credentials are listed as? You fought in the no hold bar era, and you fought some top talented guys who could compete with some of the best of the UFC today.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm not a complainer. I hate excuses, but I would be lying to you if I felt a little bit. It bothers me, man, when people say, oh, he never fought anybody or something like that. Well, what do you mean I never fought anybody, man? I fought every time my manager said fight. I fought. You just tell me the name, or you just tell me not even the name. You just tell me the dates, and I'll be there. And what sucks is a lot of times back in that era, the promoters were not. There was no commissions, man. They weren't required to send in results. To fighters. So some of the fighters that I fought, they didn't even get their fights registered. Like, for example, Del Hawkins, WEC veteran Del Hawkins, when I won the belt, he was a WEC veteran, and they announced him with over 50-some fights, and those aren't all registered on his record, and I've got a lot of my fights that aren't registered,
So, man.
So, yeah, I do a little bit. Yeah, it bothers me a little. I mean, I'm not going to lie, man. I'm a very... One thing about me, bro, is, dude, and I get criticized for this. I speak the truth, man. And what you see is what you get with me. And I'm not perfect, but one thing about me, man, if I'm going to tell you something, it's going to be the truth. I'm not going to lie and bullshit. It's going to be the truth. And believe me, people want me to write a book, and that's not going to be a good thing. I'm not about throwing people under the bus, man.
Well, maybe you don't have to throw people under the bus, but just your journey itself. I mean, you trained at Wanderley's camp, the Juan fight team. You used to train with Pat Miletich, and, you have a lot of great stories, man. And even recently, I mean, I was following some of your Facebook posts as well. I saw that you were at the gas station the other morning and at 3 a.m., and a couple cars pulled in all crazy doing some sketchy business.
Yeah, man, I just did. That's normal, bro. I just witnessed the drug deal, It's normal, dude. I'm always prepared, And I grew up in Decatur, Illinois, bro. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is a rough town, man. You can make it in this town. You can make it anywhere. So, that's why I've never been even an ounce of fear of going anywhere in this world. I mean, Decatur is a rough town, man, and you need to stay in the good areas. Well, believe me. So, trying to get my family out of here, man, and I will.
Well, you hear from a lot of fighters who are like, I'm not afraid to get in the octagon. I'm not afraid of getting to...
That's bullshit.
I'm not afraid of anything. What I'm usually afraid of is going through the weight cut and making sure I go through it the right way and get through it healthy. Have you ever had any, rough weight cutting in the past?
Yes, but let me touch on any fighter that says they're not afraid to step in that cage. Afraid is not the word. If any fighter tells you they're not nervous before they step in that cage, they're lying to you. And if they aren't lying to you, they better be afraid or they better be nervous because, man, it is no joke in that cage. You can die in there, And yeah, of course you're nervous. That's what being a fighter is all about. You face your fears. And you overcome your fears, and this carries on in life. This carries on in your everyday life, So because the real fight is outside the cage. Just the inside the cage, that's easy, but the real fight is outside the cage, and that's what fighting is all about. You keep fighting, and you never give up. I don't like to see these. It drives me nuts, man, seeing these complainers and whiners. Go to Morocco and go see a man that works 80 hours a week, making $200 a month, and go to these other countries and then get back with me. You know what I mean? Or go visit St. Jude's Children's Hospital where all these kids are dying of cancer, and then you get back with me and see how rough you have it. But back to this weight cutting. Yeah, man, I never cut weight my whole career because they never had my weight division. So I very rarely cut weight. And at my very last UFC fight, the one that Edwin Figueroa, he did a great job, man. And I'll make no excuses. He kicked my ass, and that was the only time in my whole career that I truly got beat up ever. Period. And, that I got beat up. I mean, he beat me up. And much respect to him. I lost fair and square. I'm not going to blame it on the weight cut. But I will tell you about the weight cut if you'd like to know.
Yeah, because I talk with a lot of fighters about this subject. There's been a lot of changes as of late. So, I'm interested to hear, some of your stories about weight cutting.
Man, that was the most brutal experience of my life, and I'll never forget when my father walked into the hotel room. He didn't even recognize me, and by this time, man, I had put on some muscle, and ended up cutting a lot of weight, man, and I made a mistake. And my brother gets mad at me if I talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it because it's the truth, man. He doesn't think this is the reason. There's no reason I lost, man, but I will tell you what I did, and it's nobody's fault except mine. You know, I was panicked because I couldn't cut the last 2 pounds. And the most embarrassing thing to me as a fighter is not losing. The most embarrassing thing to me would be not making weight, because that shows lack of discipline. It shows lack of discipline in my eyes. Now, if you're a professional, you make weight and do your job. There's no excuse for that. So I said, go get an enema. Get an enema. And they looked at me like I was crazy, and I'm seeing dogs, man. I mean, I'm seeing dogs. I'm hearing dogs barking. I mean, I'm seeing flying elephants. I mean, I'm hallucinating. Wow. I'm hallucinating at this point, and I'm in the bathtub, and I just said, go get an effing enema. Go get an enema. I've never done an enema in my life. My brother said, no, man, no. And I yelled at him, and I feel bad about it to this day. And I said, go get an enema now, man. So he went and got an enema. I did an enema, and yeah, man, and I got rid of the 2 pounds, and I made the weight. And I tell you what, I never believed. Well, I'm gonna tell you, man, I never believed any of that stuff until after that fight. It took me maybe a year to really have it sink in, and I am really convinced that was the reason that I had such a poor performance. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life, man. Really. I mean, aside from I was in great shape. I was in the best shape against Tiaquan Zhang, but I was in amazing shape also against Edwin Figueroa. And, man, when I got out in that cage, I had nothing. I mean, I had absolutely nothing. I start talking to the guy. I start talking to him. I never did that in my fights, man. I lost it, man. I lost my mental focus, man. I had nothing. I remember coming back in the second round, and I knew I was done. And I just remember looking across the cage, and I remember seeing this young, fresh, strong killer standing there bouncing up and down. And I just got off that stool and said, well, I'm going to go take my ass kicking like a man. And that's what I did. And to this day, I'm convinced, my ulnar nerve is, I'm convinced I was dehydrated, and I'll get the surgery one day. I'll get the surgery one day, but my ulnar nerves are my ulnar nerve, and that's it, man. But if I wasn't dehydrated, I don't think I would have got the ulnar nerve injury that I received. But hey, man, we're fighters, and that's what we do, man.
Well, we hear it a lot, man. People are dying from going through these weight cuts. What do you think's the answer to some of these problems? Because you're saying in your fight you were so dehydrated, and it can do some damage to you when your body is not ready to go through all the exercise that it's being asked to perform, and you're dehydrated. Your organs are all dehydrated, so you're taking a beating, and that has long-term effects on your body. So what's a safer alternative that they can do? Of course, they did open up more weight divisions, like you said, but this is a serious thing, and you see a lot of fighters now forming the fighter unions and stuff like that because they're saying they weren't treated fair, this and that. But it's still a huge problem going on today.
They weren't. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, what you said, they weren't true. Who said they're not treated fair? Who said they're not treated fair?
I'm saying that there's people out there, fighters out there, forming the fighters unions and trying to set up, saying that they're not fair. They should get paid a little more money. They didn't get enough money on their contracts for everything that they did.
Oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. You know what? Cry that river to somebody else, dude. Then why'd you sign the contract? You knew exactly what you were getting yourself into, man. I don't, you know what, man? That might sound like a dick, but you know what, man? Okay. Fighters sign a contract. Oh, they're happy then, right? They're great. They're happy then, but boy, when things go bad, then they come out. Oh, man, I didn't get treated fair. I did blah, blah, blah. Man, save that, bro. Are you a tennis player or are you a fighter? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Bro, I'm serious. Are you a badminton player? I don't know, bro. But I mean, dude, we're fighters, man. I mean, look, back in the day, bro, we'd fight to the no time limits, man. I fought guys 200 pounds, and I was 132 pounds. I watched a guy in a headlock for 58 minutes, man. So that excuse shit to me, bro, it doesn't. When I broke my neck in that damn cage, when that Randy Griemann, for the RSF, when we were fighting for his world title, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You asked me about that, about the RSF and the SFC, both those world titles.
Yep.
But anyway, when Randy Griemann went in, he did this, and God bless his soul, he got killed, and they executed him. But anyway, I'll never forget, man. The cage is getting the ring. It was in the ring. It was getting set up, and the foam, the padding underneath the tarp, it stayed outside that night and got wet. So they're putting together the ring, and I said, "Hey guys, where's the little padding? That gives a little bit, And they said, "Oh, Randy said it got wet, so we're not using it." I go, "Oh, okay. Guess we're going to be fighting on plywood, huh?" He goes, "Yeah, I guess so, man. We're just doing what the boss man said." I said, "No problem." So I break my neck, man, in the damn cage, and I still won that fight, and herniated 2 discs and cracked the vertebrae and whatever. And people thought to get me to sue Randy Griemann, dude. I ain't suing nobody, bro. Sue. That's what everybody wants to do in America. Sue you, man. It's like, dude, you knew what you were getting yourself into. I could have said, "Hey, I'm not fighting. You didn't put the pad in there." But then when things go bad, people want to sue people. That's all they want to do,
Yeah, we're going to talk about Randy Griemann in a second here, but just to finish this last thing. And I'm not speaking for the fighters at all. I'm just saying I think a lot of the fighters are just saying that, and we've seen this in boxing before in the past, once they get to the end of their career, they don't really know where to go. Nothing's really set up for them. So I think they want to try to push for something for after, their fight career.
Now you're talking to different. Now that I agree with that.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Okay. Now a fight. Yes. A union or whatever needs to be set up for fighters after fighting. Absolutely, 100%. Because people need to have the right people around them. Look, man. Let's face it. There's a lot of scumbags in this business, bro. Yep. And you gotta have. I've seen them. And I've been around them. And you have to have good people around you, man. When you're fighting, when you're done, you'll be forgotten about like nothing. And, yes, you have to have, there needs to be something set up. But as far as these guys whining and complaining, and they fight, but they sign the contract, you sign the contract, bro, and now you're whining and crying a river of tears. Nah, man, you're talking to the wrong guy about that. You know what I mean? But as far as getting somebody, as far as organization, as far as, taking care of fighters when they're done fighting, absolutely, I'm all for that, 100%.
So you were just bringing up, your fight with Randy Griemann. For everybody out there that's not familiar with that fight, you actually just brought it up. You broke your neck during the fight, and you actually came back from behind to win. But unfortunately, something awful happened to Randy, which I wasn't even aware of. Until recently, a couple of your fans went out and what did they kidnap him? What exactly is the story here behind Randy Griemann's disappearance?
Well, bro, it's terrible, man. I mean, he has a son, so I don't want to say anything bad about Randy. Randy did a great organization. He brought in fighters from all over the world. He called Parisian. He did a lot of great things for the sport, So I'm going to tell you what, and you can read about this on St. Louis Post-Dispatch with Randy Griemann. Apparently, allegedly, they say he was involved in some illegal activity. I'm not saying he was. I don't know. I never saw anything. All I know is the man paid very well back then. He paid very well back then for fighters, compared to what we were getting paid. So anyway, yeah, man, they ended up, apparently according to the papers, they ended up some guys he owed some money to or something, and they ended up shooting him execution style, and also his friend that was in the car. And according to the papers, they ended up he ended up stopping by this guy's house, and Ended up doing some business with this guy. I don't know what type of business. The papers said drugs. I don't know. But anyway, an innocent man was in his car waiting for him to get done doing what he was doing, and the guy was just getting a ride home. And these guys shot Randy in the kitchen and realized that his friend was in the car, and they killed him too, man. They thought they had to kill him too, and apparently they put him in the woods, and the rest is history, bro. And here's what's so crazy about that story. When I heard about this, man, and I started reading about this, I looked and I said, what? And I started looking at these guys' pictures that got caught doing this. And I'm like, holy shit. These guys were the guys that used to buy my ringside tickets to come watch me fight. They wanted to watch my fights, right? Because I was undefeated, and they always wanted to watch me. And they used to come and buy my tickets, and I'm sitting there looking at their faces, and I'm like, that's the guy, that's the leader of the whole crew, and he's the guy who used to buy my tickets. And here that crew killed Randy and his friend, man.
And they got caught. They got caught for it.
Yeah, damn right they did. Yeah, you don't kill people, bro. That man, even Lee Murray, we talk about that, and I'll tell you about Lee Murray. He says to me, Jay, I said, hey, whatever happened to so-and-so? And he said, oh, that dumbass. I said, what? He goes, he murdered somebody. And he said, his exact words were, fucking idiot, and so, I mean, I don't know, man. It's just, these people shooting people and killing people. I mean, they act like it's a video game, man. You can't just stop. You don't start play. And you don't, start play and start over, bro. You kill somebody, it's just forever. You're dead.
It's a crazy world that we're living in. And I know my grandparents said it, my parents said it, and I'm going to say it. It's a crazy generation right now that, the world's seeing right now. And especially...
Yeah, man.
Especially here in the States right now, people are, nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing surprises me. A story like this, it doesn't surprise me. But you must have really spit your coffee out when you saw who it was and realized that they were fans of yours.
Oh, dude, that was insane. And I mean, they used to even come to Brian Madden's show when I fought for the SFC belt. And they used to, like I said, man, they used to buy my tickets all the time. I used to call them up and say, hey, guys, I got, 20 ringsides or, 20, yeah, we were fighting in a ring back then. And, hey, guys, I got my 20 ringsides. And they'd always say, okay. And I'd get them their tickets, and here I am looking at the paper, and those guys are all, the one, 4 of the 20 or 4 of the 18 guys, how many ever it was, they ended up being arrested, and now they're in prison for killing Randy, man. And Randy had a son, dude. I mean, Randy didn't like me, man. And you know what? He didn't like me. He always tried to get me beat. He didn't like that I was undefeated. Believe me, he did not like me. He was always trying to get me beat, according to my manager. Anyway, but I ended up always proving him wrong. But anyway, man, he's got a son, dude.
Well, with a 20-3 record, man, I'm sure there were so many people out there that really wanted to get a piece of you to try to really get that experience in there. And something that you used to have that fighters don't have anymore in the UFC is sponsorship deals. And I've heard a bunch of sponsorship stories in the past. I kind of want to hear your take on this. I mean, Reebok is now a part of the UFC. All the fighters got to wear the fight kits, and they can't have sponsors on their shorts anymore. Did you ever have any sponsor issues before in the past?
Oh shit, man. Yeah, I've had many sponsor issues. Yeah, man, I really did.
I mean, not to throw anybody under the bus. You don't got to say anyone's names.
Yeah, man, I ain't about saying names, bro. What's done is done, you know what I mean, man? But I'll tell you, but like, when I fought in Australia, there were some sponsors that didn't pay me, man. I'm still owed like $3,800, whatever. But anyway, yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. It's not funny, actually. It really, it's not funny, but I'll tell you what, man, I've never told, there's a lot of things that, see, thing about me, man, people say I'm too open about my life, but man, I only tell about 15, 20%. There's so much that I could tell people but I don't, because people, the shit that I've seen and the things, the journey I've been on, people, they think that it's like I think, man, there's no way they'll believe this. Like, for example, my sponsor, Man, I'm in Vegas, bro. And he says, "Yeah, man, I'll put you on your fight. You put me on your fight shorts and do all my interviews and say my name and blah blah blah. Do this and do that. I'll get your hotel for you when you're training." I'm like, "Cool, man, great." So I'm there for a week training at Wanderlei Silva's because keep in mind, I always represented Milicic fighting systems. And like I said, no gym is perfect. If you're out there searching for Yoda, you're going to be searching for the rest of your career. So no gym is perfect. So, I was very big on staying loyal, okay? So, and I would still be at Milicic fighting systems had they not broke up, okay? So anyway, they broke up. The team broke up, and every good thing comes to an end usually. Anyway, so I ended up having an opportunity to go out to Vegas to train at Wanderlei's, and I never forget when I'm laying in bed with my neck brace on. I was watching Wanderlei's fights, and here I am training at his gym after I recover, years later, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So I'm sitting in that hotel room, man. I have all my supplements out, all my training gear, and fighters, you know what I'm talking about, man. We got stuff spread out everywhere. And, man, I get a knock at the door, man. I think it was like 12 o'clock at night, and I'm like, woke up and had to be at sparring early in the morning. And I look through the people, and there's police there. I'm like, what in the hell? I opened the door, and they said, yes, Mr. Reinhardt, did you know you were supposed to be checked out at 11 o'clock? And I said, no, sir, that must be a big mistake. My sponsor is paying for this. And I showed him the contract, and the sponsor did not pay for he did not pay for it.
Wow.
And so they gave me 30 minutes to get out of there, and I asked them, please, man, can I have an hour?
This is before
I've got
a fight?
everything everywhere, man.
This is before your fight, right?
Or during the middle of I never told anybody this, bro.
Wow.
So I think this is the first time I'll ever tell them this. But yeah, man, this was during the middle of my training camp, and I had some great momentum going. And Wanderlei, his wife, man, Tia, look, man, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to call home and worry my wife, so I just slept in the back of the alley, bro. And I got my training gear, and I slept on the top of my suitcases in the back of the alley of the hotel. And the police kept driving by, and they looked after me. And I didn't want to tell anybody. It's embarrassing, bro. And and so anyway, I ended up finally Kia. I didn't even tell her, and I ended up being able to. I asked her at the gym, Wanderlei's wife. I said, "Is there any fighter house that I can stay at?" And she said, "Sure." So they really took care of me, man, and allowed me to stay at the fighter house. So thank you, Wanderlei Silva, and thank you, Tia.
And he actually has an upcoming fight against Chael Sonnen, finally, something that the UFC couldn't put together. Are you looking forward to seeing this fight? And, also on that subject, they're talking about doing like a Legends division. This is something I brought up with Brad Kohler the other day. I'm going to ask you as well in just a second here. But are you going to be watching a Wandy fight against Chael?
Am I what was the last part? I'm sorry?
Are you going to be watching? Do you still watch fights, or are you not really much of a fan in watching anymore?
I know, man. Of course, man. This is my life, bro. I've never watched a football game in my life. I've never watched a basketball game. Never watched a baseball game. Yeah, man. I watch boxing and MMA. That's it. And and K1, of course. But yes, I'm gonna watch that fight. And to be honest, I don't think Chael has a chance to. Anything can happen in MMA, but I think Wanderlei will destroy him.
So another thing that I got to ask you about, which is kind of on that same topic, Bellator is kind of doing it, but Vitor Belfort brought up, of course, having kind of like a Legends division. What do you think they could do if this, and this is not something that's going to happen anytime soon, it's just like kind of an idea to throw out there and talk with you guys about. What do you think they need to do to make that possible? Because there's a lot of fighters out there with big names that people would love to watch, fight, but maybe a 5-minute round is too long. Maybe a 60-second break is too short for them. What changes do you think necessarily need to be made for them to put something like that on successfully? Well,
I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know, I'm just starting to go back through and read some of my stuff back, in the day. I hate watching my videos and all that, but I'm just starting to embrace that. But I had somebody else handle all that stuff for me, but I used to hate watching myself. But anyway, I'm just starting to see different interviews and going back and reading a lot of stuff. And if you'll go back, I don't know where it is, it's on Google somewhere, but if you type in an interview that I did, I talk about a senior masters division. I've always thought that, well, not always, that's not true. But when about 5 years ago, I thought to myself, man, why isn't there a senior MMA masters division? There is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I just find out now that there is in boxing in the amateur ranks. And, I just find out, I don't know if that's true, but somebody told me, a legit person told me that they do have a senior masters division in amateur boxing, but why can't there be an MMA senior masters division professionally in MMA? I messaged Ken Shamrock about this, and he said he agreed with me. Vanderlei agreed with me.
Wow.
I mean, I think it would be amazing. Man, bro, do you know how many fighters, I don't want to name names, but guys are sitting on their couch right now so depressed, dude, because they want to fight. That's like telling a golfer, dude. That's like telling a golfer that loves golfing, his passion. That's like saying, hey, man, you can't golf anymore, bro. You can't golf. Dude, there's so many guys that would love to continue to compete. But, going against we'll fight anybody, of course. But that's stupid. But
look what they just did to BJ. They had him make his return against the young gun and just really shut him out.
Yeah, and who was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. Who was that?
It was BJ Penn against Ike Rodriguez, who's like the young and up-and-comer kid who took BJ out on his return.
Yeah, bro, that's what I'm saying. Like, for example, when I was in Australia teaching, there's a stud named Con Olfley. He's a lot bigger than me. But, dude, I can't compete with that 22-year-old stud, man. You know what I mean? These guys are freaking, these guys are, back in the day, of course I could, but these anymore, man, these fighters, man, they're animals. They're just explosive, young. They're injury free. A lot of them.
They're
haven't experienced the chronic pain yet. What's that?
And they're pretty much worry free at that moment in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so yes, man. A lot of the guys, of course, a real fighter will fight anybody, okay? But really, let's be honest, that's stupid. That's really stupid. In a competition arena like that, but if it comes down to it, of course we will. But no. A guy in their 40s has no business fighting somebody in his early 20s that's at the height of his career. No way, man. So there should be a senior masters division, in my opinion, if that's going to happen, the senior master, the guy in his 40s or in his 50s, cut it off at 55 or maybe 60, but no more after 60, man. But that's my view. 55 would be good, maybe 58, but that's it. But anyway, but you got to come in shape. You can't just get off the couch and I want to just fight and do this again, man. No, you got to take it very serious. If you did that, you get in shape, you come in and look great, you really are still able to perform and do good. There's a lot of great matches that you could make, man.
Yeah, a lot. Well, what do you think would need to be done for them to do it? Like, what would be some good guidelines to help, successfully make this happen? Like, I brought up maybe some shorter rounds, maybe longer breaks. Brad Kohler said oxygen tanks. Any suggestions?
Oh, not oxygen tanks, man. No, but, dude, if you're training hard, dude, look, if you got to bring an oxygen tank in there, you have no business fighting. That's my eyes. I love Brad, though, man, much respect, but Brad sold me a ring one time, and, no, man, I bought a ring off Brad. He's hilarious. I love Brad. But anyway, but no, man, we ain't bringing no damn oxygen tank to the ring, man.
Yeah,
what, you going to pull up in your... Damn, dude, you'll pull up in your wheelchair too? I mean, hell. But, no, man, I just think that, I don't even know, it doesn't even need to be less rounds. If you're training hard, you can make 5-minute rounds. You can make 5 minutes, man, if you're training hard. Or make 3-minute rounds. I don't know, maybe 3-minute rounds. But yeah. I don't think there needs to be, if you make 3-minute rounds, no longer break. 1 minute rest is enough time if you're training properly.
So as we get towards the end of this interview, there's a couple more things that I want to bring up with you before we end all of this. Of course, you got 17 submissions. You got 3 wins by knockout in your mix that we know of course. What's been your favorite fight so far of your professional career?
Well, I've got a lot more fights that aren't registered, but that's okay. Anyway, my favorite fight was, well, I'll tell you, man, my favorite fight when I beat Joe Santiago in Canada, and he was kicking my ass. I was going to lose that fight, and I got lucky, and I ended up catching him in an arm lock, but I had competed in Japan a few weeks prior to that, and the commentators were blaming it on that. It wasn't that, man. It was because Joe was tough, man, and he was tough, strong kid, man, a lot younger, taller, longer, bigger, and he was tough. He kicked my ass, man, and I ended up getting lucky and catching him in the arm bar and winning the fight. And that was my God rest his soul. He passed away, and it's just terrible. He recently passed away, and it sucks, but it is. Hey, man, that's life. But another fight, George Conger. That was one of my favorite fights. Spencer Fisher was in my corner, and I thought I was going to lose that fight. Spencer got my head out of my butt, and I ended up pulling that win off. Close. That was in the LFC in Indianapolis. That was a college wrestler, and I was pretty happy with my wrestling there, man. I actually was out wrestling him, and this kid was a strong college-level wrestler. So those were my 2 favorite fights, and, of course, when I beat WC Veteran Del Hawkins and ended up coming behind and beating him. And
broken neck, we ended up both. That's amazing. What was going through your mind when you broke your neck and then ended up winning? Well, that's if somebody is at home and they're hearing this for the first time, they're probably their jaw probably has dropped. What was going on in that fight? Did you really realize your neck was broken?
Well, let me tell you what happened, and I'm not blaming the chiropractor, but I got adjusted a week prior to that, and he adjusted my neck, man, and I didn't see, I don't know, man. I told my wife, I said, hey, something doesn't feel right, my neck. I think he loosened something up, man. And so I started having this pain down my arm, and hell, man, I wasn't going to pull out of the fight, bro. I mean, I had 70, 80 people come from Decatur, Illinois. By the way, I love Decatur, Illinois, my hometown. It's just, and thank you for all the support. Okay, I love everybody, but Decatur is a really rough town. It's getting rough. 800, 900 people are leaving here recently. But anyway, I was not going to let my fans down, and I fought anyway. And so I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. And what was going on in my head, well literally, not, no pun intended, but when they slammed me on the second time, I mean, you know how it is, man. When you're fighting, you have so much adrenaline, you don't feel anything, And sometimes you do, most of the time you don't. But when he slammed me, I just remember my toes and my feet. This electric shock went down through my body, like up and down through my whole body. And but I tried to play it off, really. I didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah,
and so, yeah, man, and. Yeah, Matt Hughes, and he was even in my corner, man. He was standing back, though. He was part of he was in my corner. Jens Pova was there, Jeremy Horn, Kelly Weissman, bro. My brother Justin Reinhardt. It was Mike Griffin. It was crazy, man. And then I didn't even tell anybody, and ended up my dad You know, my dad's like my best friend. You know, he's been there for me, man. He flew me to San Francisco, and of course, I had to pay the surgery out of my pocket. The promoter didn't have insurance. They weren't regulated. They didn't have to have insurance back then, so I put me in a lot of financial hardship, bro. But that's okay. And the doctors told me never to fight again, never to train again, and I told them, I said, I will make it to the UFC. How does that sound? And they told me I was crazy. And I said, well, that might be, but this is my life, and so be it, man. And here we are, you know?
Wow, I got to thank you so much for coming on the show today. All these stories, we're going to have you come back on for like an hour-long show for everybody, do it live, because it seems there's so much I want to talk with you about. Unfortunately, I got another show to do in a little bit here.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
But
yeah, no problem, dude. I'll tell you about Matt Hughes choking out Brock Lesnar next time. How's that? When Brock Lesnar tried to break Matt's back. How about I tell you that one next time?
We got to set that up very soon, because you were talking with me about it. I have it written down here. I want to bring it up so bad, and of course my Twitter's getting flooded right now. So.
Oh yeah, buddy. Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. And
well,
hey, real quick, I want to tell you a shout out to all my Australian mates, all my Australian friends. You know, Matty Miles. You know, all my Matt Davies. You know, the AFC Hex. There's some two great organizations in Melbourne. I did some commentating for AFC. They're going to China. You know, Peter Graham, my friend Peter Graham, world champion. You know, and all my mates and Joshua Fairs, all my mates that Roger Aboud. It just goes on and on. The list goes on and on. But Australia, we'll talk about that, later if you want to. I can tell America about how Australia is.
Listen, Jason, I'm not rushing you at all. I like to do this the proper way. I got all the time in the world for the fighters. I have the most utmost respect.
Brother.
I have the most utmost respect for you, Jason. We like to do this, the proper way. What I like to do at this point is I hand the imaginary microphone over to you. If you got any shout-outs, sponsors, anything else that you want to get off your back. And really quick, let me just ask you, what's going on in Australia with you? I mean, you keep bringing Australia up. What's going on with you in Australia right now?
Well, I have a lot of friends in Australia. I was coaching in Australia. I was coaching there for a year, and I came home, and I've got an opportunity to go back. It's pretty far away. Right now, I'm headed to Florida, and I'm going to go coach in Florida for a while, and just try to get my family in the future, and try to get my family out of here, man. I'm trying to create a better life for my family, and that's it. And yeah, man, my buddy Mo Mash. I mean, I've got in Australia, man. I'm very blessed, bro. I'm very blessed, and my family. I mean, I just can't. We can't do anything by ourselves, bro. Everybody needs people to support each other, and I just would like to see people come together more. And I hate this divide in the world, bro. The divide is ridiculous, man. We're all human beings, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I'm right on that same page. And that's what I love about this sport, is that it brings a lot of people together from all over the world that can connect under one roof and relate to one another and have something in common. And I love mixed martial arts. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today to share some of these stories. And like I said, we have to have you back on sometime soon. So we'll definitely be in talks about it. And I wish you the best of luck and skill in the next couple of weeks with whatever you got going on. And thank you for coming on Pure Evil MMA.